Today's podcast is going to be a little bit different than usual. But today is a little different than usual. Today, I'm going to tell a story. I left home and got married at 17 years old. At 18 3/4 old, on November 26th, 1990, I became a mother to a son, Sean Michael. 9 pounds, 3.5 ounces, 19 inches long, 21 hours of labor, and 3 hours of pushing for this tiny, red-headed human being who was my firstborn. Sean and I had a very special relationship. Although I the parent and he the child, and then a big brother 2 years later, in a lot of ways, I grew up with Sean and Brianna. This is the drawback of being a young parent. Now, the energy to go to the park every day and rollerblade or splash in puddles outside after it rained, that was available. Playing flashlight tag in the yard on a summer night, or having water gun battles and silly string battles in the house was perfectly acceptable. Wisdom and insight, however, didn't come as easily back then. See, parenting is a journey. Just like any other health journey, you learn along the way. You're not sure what you don't know until you know it, and it takes time to build skills. Today's episode is dedicated to Sean, because talking about him today will keep me on track when the day kind of makes me feel off. Welcome to episode 21 of Making Mel Health in the Hustle. This podcast is a place where motherhood meets muscle, ambition meets exhaustion, and figuring out how to prioritize my health journey into the insanely beautiful chaos of a busy life is what I talk about. Some days it'll look easy and other days flawless, but no matter what kind of day I'm having, I can assure you I will tell the truth and do my best to give you some good ideas and insight to help you prioritize your own journey. Today's episode is The Lessons My Son Taught Me. Sean was a spitfire. He was a ball of energy from the moment he began to crawl. He crawled at 5 months old. He started saying words at 9 months old. And he spoke in clear sentences at a year old. He read books at 4 years old. He also suffered from mental illness at a very young age, with both auditory and visual hallucinations. When he was 6 years old, he destroyed his elementary school principal's office. Everything not bolted down was on the floor. They took him by ambulance to a hospital right from the school, where he stayed for an entire month and even had his 7th birthday there. When I met with the psychiatrist, he informed me that Sean was bipolar with psychotic features, and that he saw things that weren't there, and that he heard voices that medication did not seem to stop. The doctor also told me that Sean tested with an IQ of 189, which is like almost superhuman. I think genius level is 135. My son was super intelligent and super tortured. Medication would help for a while, but every time he had a growth spurt, medication would no longer be effective, and down this spiral we'd go. My daughter, Brianna, often the smallest and most vulnerable in the room, would be the target when Sean was having an episode. He tried to knock a bookcase down on her when he was 8 and she was 6. He tried to push her down the stairs when she was 8 and he was 10. I had numerous professionals tell me to have him committed, especially after the night that I woke to find him standing over me with a screwdriver ready to plunge it into me because the voices in his head told him to. When Sean was 12, Abilify, a new antipsychotic, was finally approved by the FDA, and the doctors tried it with Sean. 11 days later, he came running into my room in the middle of the night, yelling, "They're gone, they're gone, they're gone." And after a few minutes, of waking up, I realized what he meant. Although the Seroquel had taken away the visual hallucinations that he's had for more than 4 years, nothing took those voices away until Abilify kicked in. He didn't hear them anymore. They were gone. Sean was a really tough kid to raise. I often said when they were little that I got one child for the joys and the other for the challenges of parenting. When Sean's medication worked well, he was kind and sweet and big-hearted. He could be really considerate. But when the medication wasn't working, there was hell to pay. I was trained in something called safe physical restraint. It was a way to help keep him and the rest of us safe. And there were some nights I would sit with him on the floor in a restraint, holding him while he threw himself about, slammed his head off on my chest, and raged 4 hours. I'd hold him until my arms went numb, my chest was bruised, and sometimes we'd both fall asleep on the floor. I refused to give up on him. And when we had the good times, it gave me good reason. As he got older, coping skills got better from all the numerous services that I had him in. And we got to really spend some time with much less chaos. Sean loved the Harry Potter series. When the books would come out, Walmart would put them out on sale at midnight. So Sean and I would go to the store, we'd get 2 copies of the book, and we'd stay up all night reading, drinking butterbeer, and sleeping in the whole next day. He always had hugs for everyone. And Cornball was his nickname, with good reason. Despite his difficulties, he had a very kind streak, and he would go out of his way for his friends. Managing his illness took a lot of energy, but it taught me a lot. He was the very first one at the hospital to meet his baby sister, Genesis, when she was born in 2010. But out of respect for his other sister, Brianna, he refused to hold her until Bree came to the hospital and held her, because she told him to wait. And he was content to wait. On August 1st, 2010, Sean was killed walking along a road late at night in the rain when a stupid 21-year-old drunk kid coming home from drinking all night at the bar with his girlfriend didn't see him. He hit him and he left him in the road. Some fishermen a few hours later who stopped at the intersection saw him and called it in. The coroner said that Sean was dead on impact, but it didn't stop the nightmares of him laying in the road calling for me for many, many nights. Since his passing in 2010, grief has been a constant companion. It changed me, physically, mentally, and emotionally. When the situation occurred, everyone seemed to have an opinion, but none of that mattered. He was my son. There have been days when the weight felt unbearable. I've learned that grief, just like weight loss, isn't linear. It resurfaces unexpectedly, sometimes years later, at the most inopportune moments. What helped me to cope were the small, steady practices: talking openly, seeking support, and allowing myself to feel without judgment. If you're grieving, know that you're not alone, and it's okay to ask for help if you need it. In the years since Sean passed, there are many lessons that I wish I'd taught him. I've gained so much knowledge about health, physically, mentally, and emotionally. I often think about what I wish I'd shared with my son. The importance of self-care, listening to your body, and nurturing your mind. If I could, I'd tell him to prioritize rest, seek help when needed, and never, ever underestimate the power of kindness towards himself and others. Some of these lessons he learned, but I wish I'd emphasized them differently. Again, I grew up with him and Brianna, and I didn't know what I didn't know. I know better with Genesis. When they were little, I was still very damaged from childhood, and I was young and clueless. I did the best I could, but my best is way better now than it was then. See, it's impossible to instill lessons in others that you don't yet understand yourself. Becoming a parent, especially to my firstborn, transformed me. Sean's challenges and demeanor taught me patience, unconditional love, the ability to look past people's presentation and try to see who they really are, and the courage to face life's hardest moments. It taught me to look past the noise, other people's opinions, the chaos, and see the potential. The bond we shared shaped my values and priorities and the way I see people in the world. Even now, I find myself guided by the lessons he left behind. Reminders to cherish every moment and to lead with heart and empathy with others. Some of the lessons that Sean taught me were direct through his words and actions, and others were subtle, revealed in quiet moments or in the way he faced challenges. I think about the small things, like that annoying footbook that I had to read 3 or 4 times every single night for months when he was 4. Left foot, right. Feet in the morning, feet at night. See, I still remember it. Some things stick in your brain. I remember the way that I would cringe when I would arrive at work and the school would call me because his behaviors were out of control and they wanted him gone for the day. I remember the way I was repeatedly offered parenting classes when combat training and psychological warfare training would have been much more helpful. I remember the way he would laugh, and he'd repeat every single word to the Mighty Ducks movie up until even a month before he died. It was still his favorite. I think about the things he missed out on. He never really had a real relationship. He never graduated from college or sought a career. He never got married or had any children. I never got to see the man that he was going to be. And he left a path of damage in some people that he left behind. He loved grits, and he would often buy the ingredients so my husband would make a whole pot for him. He ate Snickers bars like it was his job in life. He wore a size 15 shoe that looked more like a boat to me than a shoe. He stood 6'4", and when he was about 15, he developed a very deep voice. Because I'm 5'3", he could put his arm straight out and rest his elbow on top of my head, and he would look down at me and say, "Hi, little mom." He had the bluest eyes to go with his red hair. He was loved by many, and he was kind. He was a gentle giant who loved little kids and often served in the nursery at church. He never got to see that last Harry Potter movie. It came out a year after he died, and I went and saw it for him, alone in the theater, and I cried the whole time. So much mindless loss for no apparent reason. So many missed opportunities to spend time with him. Just hours before he was killed, we had our last conversation. Every night he would call me between 9 and 10 p.m. to tell me about his day or what he had planned the next day. And at the end, he always said the same thing. I love you, Mama. I love you too, Shawnee. His life changed me, and his death changed me. But it didn't end me, though a little more beaten up. I see him sometimes in Genesis. That devilish little smile when she thinks she's pulling one over on me, that came from him. A joy and selfless kindness, a love for children and a concern for people like him. Every time I see a tall, red-headed man in public, it still stops me dead in my tracks sometimes. And if that phone happens to ring between 9 and 10 p.m., I think for a split second, oh, it's Sean. I wish he could see how far I've come. I wish I could have told him to be more cautious. I wish that I had told him that life gets clearer as you get older and wiser. I wish. This time of year makes me sad. He would have been 35 years old today. A man who never really got to be. Grief is a journey. When I think about it, I realize that the lessons my son taught me continue to ripple outward, touching not just my life, but the lives of the people around me. His story isn't just one of struggle and loss, but of resilience and kindness and the power of love. Even in the darkest moments, I've found light in the memories we shared and in the way his spirit lives on, in laughter, in acts of compassion, and in the courage to keep moving forward. As I sit here and think about all the moments, the big and the small, that I shared with my son, I remember those late night Harry Potter releases. I remember the night we went to the movie theater to see The Lion King, and we got thrown out of Burger King afterward for the ice hockey game that we played at the table. 23-year-old and a 4-year-old cannot be trusted. I remember the incredible strength that it must have taken for him to face the day at times, even as a little boy. Even now, 15 years later, I still find myself looking for him in the world. The ache of missing him will never leave me. I carry his memory with me in everything I do, in the way I love, in the way I parent, in the way I try to show up for others who are hurting, and in the way I understand to love people hard today because you may not get tomorrow. You know, Coach Valerie often says yesterday is a canceled check and tomorrow is a promissory note. All you have is today. So today's what you've got to give. If you're listening and you're grieving at this time of year too, please know you are not alone. I hope you find comfort in your memories, and I hope that you give yourself permission to feel joy again, even if it's bittersweet at times. I'm grateful today that I was able to share my Shawn Michael with you. The lessons he taught me are woven into who I am, and by sharing them, I hope they bring you a little hope too. We may never stop missing the ones we love, but we can honor them by living fully, loving deeply, and taking care of the others around us who need us. Our stories may be different, but our hearts beat with the same longing and hope. This journey isn't easy, but together, maybe we can find meaning and healing. Happy birthday, Shawn Michael. I sure do miss you. Until next time, onward and upward, my friends.